virtually every mass shooting, every circumstance where a large number of people have been victimized and lost, I've spoken to. I learned a long time ago what you've all learned in your life. When someone's going through something that is beyond their comprehension, that they ever thought they'd have to go through. If they see someone who they think understands or maybe been through something not the same but similar, it gives them some sense of hope. And I always get criticized sometimes by my staff because when I go to these events, I stay for 3 to 4 hours and answer all their questions. But it matters. It matters a lot. And look, I'm talking, some of you have gone through a hell of a lot more than I've gone through, and a lot more than other people have gone through. And you understand. So it's just people are looking for just something to grab, something that gives them some sense of hope. And that's, if I can do a little bit of that, then it's, it's worth doing. It's done for me. So.
It's been 111 days with Israel at war. Over 25,000 people have died, and there seems to be no end in sight. Let's talk about what the possible solutions are that could be the end result of what we're seeing here. All this and more on The Reading Room. This is Ben-Gvir. He is the National Security Minister of Israel. He has been a prominent voice in eradicating Palestinians from the Gaza Strip as well as the West Bank. According to Benjamin Netanyahu, there will be no two-state solution. Now, it's been made loud and clear by the United States that we stand behind our core ally and Israel's right to defend itself. The United States, or I should say the American people, are not behind committing genocide. And this is exactly what we're seeing happen here, with a double standard put on human rights. There's a set of human rights for the Palestinians and a different set of rights for the Israelis. 2 million people have been besieged in Gaza as a result of American decisions and support for a country who is not playing fair at war. And it looks like Israel is now putting the United States as well as other Western countries in a bit of a predicament because they will not compromise on a two-state solution, but instead, their solution is to remove the Palestinians and facilitate emigration, meaning getting other countries to absorb, and that's the word that they're using, absorb Palestinians who voluntarily want to migrate. And that's code word for forcibly displace, because what other option will they have? Either they stay with nothing left because their homes have been bombed, or they end up getting killed. So the other option is this voluntary migration, aka forcible displacement, aka genocide. Listen to how Ben-Gvir envisions this program.
אם אנחנו לא נשלוט ונשאר שם, זה ימשיך בכל מקרה.
מה זה נשלוט? קח אותנו אנחנו רוצים הפעם לא בסיסמאות. מה זה אומר שליטה? זה אומר כיבוש? זה אומר התיישבות יהודית? מה זה אומר?
הכל שלנו.
הכל שלנו.
הכל שלנו. עזה, רצועת עזה. לא, אני חושב שהפתרון, שאלה אותי שאלה דקה, שוקו, כי חשוב לי להשיב על זה. אני חושב שהפתרון לאותם אזרחים זה לעודד את הגירתם, ואני חושב שאם אנחנו נכריע וננצח, אפשר בהחלט ליצור גם מול ממשלת סקוטלנד, שראיתי שמאוד רוצים אותם בסקוטלנד, גם מול מדינות אחרות. אנחנו שמענו אפילו את ניקי איילי שמדברת על זה. אפשר לעודד, לעשות איזשהו מבצע גדול של להעביר אותם, רק כך אנחנו נוכל להחזיר את העוטף.
רגע, השר בן גביר, אתה יודע, כל עניין העברות האלה, כן?
כן.
איך קראו לזה? חלק קוראים טרנספר ואיך קרא לזה מיכאל אליהו?
שדרוג דיור.
שדרוג דיור, כל עניין העברות האלה. נגיד העברת 50,000, העברת 100,000, העברת 200,000, יש שם 2 מיליון איש, כן? לא תעביר את כולם, נכון? אין מדינה שמוכנה לקנות 2 מיליון איש, זה לא הגיוני. אז הפתרון הזה הוא לא באמת
לא
פתרון.
נכון, אנחנו נתחיל בפיילוט של 100-200 אלף. אחרי הפיילוט הזה,
אבל
אני מאמין...
מתקדם.
לא, אני באמת מאמין שיכול להיות להם יותר טוב בארצות
אבל
אחרות.
השר בן גביר, ראש
הניסוי
הממשלה
הזה...
כבר סתם את הגולל על העניין הזה. הוא
Hey, Scotland, did you hear that? You're on their list. And I guarantee the UK is on that list, Canada is on that list, Australia, the United States. All Western countries, I am sure, are being tapped to absorb 2 million people, with most likely the United States being the dumping ground for the majority of these Palestinians, because we know what's happening here at the border, and we know that we are arms wide open to anyone facing persecution, and this would actually fit the bill. So, hey, we might even absorb all 2 million of them while we're at it. But my point is that Israel is not playing fair. This is a clear genocide, and now the rest of the world is going to have to figure out how to save these people. Otherwise, what other choice do they have? They're now facing a famine, so we're going to have people dying there, as well as many children. And then you have the ongoing bombardments. What do they have left to go back to? Egypt doesn't want to open their borders. Jordan doesn't want to open up their borders. None of these countries want to take these people. So leave it to the Western world, who is on board with this one world government, most likely going into agreeing to this, because Israel doesn't seem to be moving on their position. And right now, there's been a lot of talk here around what the Biden administration is doing with funding this genocide, because this is what it is. And whether or not Israel wants to admit what they're doing, they know what they're doing. The way how everything went down with October 7th, it is my opinion that Israel was looking for an excuse to go ahead and carry this out. And this is why we don't see them talk so much about the hostages, but so much going and getting Hamas. You know, as they are creating havoc in the city and destroying everything, you would think that there would be some care if, let's say, those hostages were a true priority. And I think that's why there's so many families that are still waiting for their loved ones to come home, is the fact they're not seeing that priority with the constant bombardments and the lack of thought for the potential to harm those hostages while they're in the process of bombing the whole entire area. The families have every right to be angry and frustrated at how this is all being handled. With the way that everything has been going with the United States and Biden just rolling over and allowing all these countries to take advantage of us, you know, I have little faith that they're going to do the right thing here and call for a ceasefire in a step towards sitting down to try and reach some peace. But we don't want to do that for whatever reason. And today, Ted Cruz rips the Democrats a new asshole because it doesn't look like the Biden administration, as well as the Democrats, predominantly, as I said in my last video, none of them are standing up to say stop any of this border crisis, migrant situation, as well as, you know, the threat that our country is under at this moment as a result of all these other geopolitical issues going on that we are supporting. When you think about it, more war equals more money going to government contracts, the government contracts going to private corporations and into the pockets of these wealthy elites. Same thing with these vaccines. Look at what's happening again in New York with the surge of tuberculosis, measles. God only knows what infectious diseases are crossing our borders into our territory and spreading here. You know, I think the WHO is quite aware of the potential for an outbreak of something crazy like Ebola. I mean, literally, that is a possibility, folks, because we've got people coming all over the world, including Africa, where there have been strains found there that outbreaks have happened in the past. So who's to say that that couldn't happen here? And guess what? They already have a vaccine for it, because you know that that's where they're going with this.
But now we're seeing new outbreaks of the disease. In Philadelphia, doctors are on high alert after 9 cases were reported. A cluster started in a hospital and spread to other medical facilities and a daycare center. CBS station's national investigative correspondent Stephen Stock explains how declining vaccination rates are jeopardizing herd immunity.
It appears, according to migrant civil rights here in the United States, there is no requirement to show that they've had vaccinations, which I also believe in some states are not required to follow up on families who are supposed to have their children vaccinated for school within the 30-day window given. So it's uncertain if any of these migrants who say that they'll go get these vaccines ever do. If you're a parent, how comfortable are you knowing that your child could be going to school with someone who could get your child sick? It's pretty frustrating to see how the people in power have sold the middle class out. Chuck Schumer, who is New York Democrat here, is responsible for trying to work out getting this security bill for immigration passed through. Now, I'm not sure how this could actually happen, but apparently Chuck Schumer has a bill ready to go on immigration, but has not shared any of the text with any of his peers for approval. On Capitol Hill today, people were on fire over it. Take a listen to what Ted Cruz had to say. He was livid.
The Biden border crisis is an absolute humanitarian disaster, and Democrats don't care. Last year, 853 migrants died crossing illegally into this country. Alejandro Mayorkas didn't even know how many had died because he didn't care. When I brought 19 senators down to the border, we saw a man who had drowned floating in the Rio Grande. Democrats don't care. Last year, thousands upon thousands of children were brutalized and sexually assaulted by human traffickers, and Democrats don't care. Last year, thousands of women were sexually assaulted by human traffickers, and Democrats do not give a damn. Last year, more than 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses from Chinese fentanyl flooding across the southern border, and Democrats do not give a damn. Now, you may say, oh, come on, that's harsh. They care. They care. Somewhere in their hearts, they care about all the people suffering and dying. Baloney. Because if they cared, they would stop it. If you cared about the children being raped at the border, you would say no more. When Joe Biden came in, we had the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. He inherited success, and he deliberately broke it. Democrats want these open borders. And this bill, this mysterious bill, that is buried down in the basement of Chuck Schumer's office. All of you have a living as reporters. Ask yourself, why have you not read the text of the bill? There's a reason. As bad as we think the bill is, I promise you it's worse. The people pushing this deal knew, no, if the American people knew what was in it, they would be against it. This supplemental bill is a kamikaze plane in a box canyon with no exit, headed for a train wreck. If you look at this bill, the bill is not designed to fix this problem. By the way, the single greatest national security threat to America, this right here. I think the odds of a major terrorist attack in the United States are higher today than they've been any time since September 11th. You know what? In that spike, how many Hamas terrorists are there? How many Hezbollah terrorists are there? And what are we going to say when they carry out an attack here like October 7th in Israel? This bill is not designed to fix the problem. This bill normalizes 5,000 people a day coming in. 5,000 people a day is over 1.8 million a year. That's called an invasion. By the way, under Joe Biden, we've had 9.6 million. So the great Republican compromise is we're for 2/3 of Joe Biden's open borders. We'll let in 6 million instead of 9 million. This makes utterly no sense. And there's a reason. Republican leadership is like Charlie Brown with Lucy and the football. And over again, they run for the football, and over again, Lucy Schumer pulls it away. And Republican leadership lands on their ass. They entered this negotiation saying, we will only do what Chuck Schumer will agree to. He doesn't want to fix this. He wants it to continue. So negotiating with Chuck Schumer on securing the border is like putting Hannibal Lecter in charge of a Go Vegan ad campaign. He might dine on your liver with a healthy side of fava beans, but it's not going to remotely do what the suggested objective is. Final point. Not only is this bill utterly ineffective in fixing the problem, but it's designed to fail. The chances of this bill passing the House of Representatives, I can quantify it mathematically. The chances of this bill passing the House are 0.000%. It ain't going to pass. At lunch, we had a vigorous discussion at lunch yesterday. I asked leadership, why on earth would you be teeing up a vote with every Democrat and 10 or 12 Republicans that has no chance of passing the House? It's not going to become law, and I get it. Leadership really, really, really wants Ukraine funding. But that doesn't happen unless you get a bill that can pass the House. The only purpose of taking this up is giving Democrats political cover to say, gosh, we would have secured the border, but those pesky House Republicans didn't let us. It's a good talking point. It's complete baloney, but it's a good talking point. This bill represents Senate Republican leadership waging war on House Republican leadership. It's not designed to secure the border, and it won't secure the border. And that's why leadership wants it kept in secret. They don't want anyone to see the text of it. Republicans in the Senate ought to have the sense and sanity to say, secure the border, or else we're not going to go along with providing fig leaves to cover up the deliberate failure of Joe Biden and the Democrats. They have caused this crisis.
We can answer anybody's questions. Yes.
I have one for Senator Cruz, actually. It's about Texas. So the Department of Homeland Security this week sent another letter again demanding access to Shelby Park. Texas is not evacuating, as you know, instead deploying even more razor wire. Do you think this will ultimately lead to a showdown between the Federal Border Patrol agents and the National Guard in Texas?
Listen, I'm proud of the great state of Texas. I'm proud of our governor. I'm proud of our state legislature because they're stepping up and defending our state from invasion. Listen, the mayor of a bunch of blue cities, the governors of a bunch of blue states have declared illegal immigration emergencies in their states. That's true in New York. That's true in Boston. That's true in Massachusetts. That's true in Chicago. That's true in L.A. Eric Adams, the liberal Democrat in New York, has said illegal immigration is destroying New York City. That's 110,000 people are destroying New York City. I agree with him. But if 110,000 people are destroying New York City, what the hell do you think 9.6 million people are doing to Texas and the other states on the southern border? And so Texas is stepping up to defend our state. I'm glad we are. But the reason Texas is doing so is because Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and the Democrats affirmatively want this invasion. By the way, you want to know why negotiating with these guys, why they're doing it in such bad faith? They are today, as you pointed out. Joe Biden is litigating against the state of Texas to try to stop Texas from securing the border. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is the greatest friend the Mexican drug cartels have ever had. He is the greatest financial benefactor the Mexican drug cartels have ever had. He is the single largest human trafficker in history. Now, that may sound like hyperbole, but those 9.6 million people, when they come over and turn themselves in, they tell the Border Patrol agents, I want to go to the following city, and they pick a city. And Joe Biden puts them on planes and puts them on buses and sends them to every city in America, and Joe Biden is the last mile of the human trafficking network. So, yes, Biden is fighting ferociously to stop Texas from defending ourselves. He is wrong. But it shows that Biden wants this, and the only thing Biden wants next is to make Ron Johnson have to buy a bigger poster board because the chart goes higher. That's all he's looking for. What we're talking about today is a different piece of this. Listen, the reason this bill is so lousy is because I actually disagree with Ron Johnson on one thing. He says Mitch McConnell's a terrible negotiator. I actually think Mitch knows exactly what he's doing. He's just negotiating for the same objectives that Chuck Schumer has. They both want a bill that funds Ukraine and is a blank check to Ukraine. And they want a bill that has a fig leaf that pretends to do border security but doesn't actually do border security. They're negotiating for the identical outcome. And Chuck Schumer's enemies in Congress are conservatives in the Senate and our House Republican leadership. And sadly, Mitch McConnell's enemies are conservatives in the Senate and House Republican leadership. You know, it's interesting, the shell game that's been played on the justifications for this bill. Initially, we were told this bill will force Biden finally to secure the border. Okay, that's an objective I'm on board with. Very quickly, the proponents of this bill abandoned that, said, yeah, we admit, okay, this bill won't do anything to Biden. He'll continue to do exactly what he's doing now. But, they say, this is argument number 2, move the show, move the show. Argument number 2, they say, well, this will give Donald Trump the tools he needs to fix this problem next year. Well, let me point out Ron Johnson's very helpful chart. Without this stinking pile of crap bill, Donald Trump got the numbers down to here. Joe Biden deliberately took the numbers up to here. And the genius Republican negotiators say, let's drop the numbers to here. Double where they were under Obama. It's not that they're bad at negotiating. It's that they want this outcome, and this outcome is terrible for the American people.
Now, here is what I've been observing between these politicians. And I predict in 2024, and this is just my personal opinion, and God, I hope that I'm wrong, but the Democrats are purposely doing what they're doing because they want to see something truly bad happen in order to prove a point and give reason to take more of our freedoms away because they want control. They need to have this kind of control because they are carrying out what the oligarchs want. The billionaire class are the ones that are actually the puppet masters in all of this. A good majority of these politicians from both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, have their loyalty to Wall Street, not the American people. And the theater that we're watching, it really is amazing to see how a lot of these politicians have gone from serving the people to now serving themselves, whether it be from a brand perspective, monetary perspective, power perspective, but ego is playing a big part of all of this destruction that we're seeing right now. The two sides really don't want to reach a happy compromise in the name of the people. A perfect example of these politicians not putting American interests over their own personal political interests is what happened with Bernie Sanders and Congress shooting down approving a bill that would essentially give Americans the information around how their money is being spent when it comes to these wars, particularly in the Ukraine as well as in Israel. It had nothing to do with impacting funding for Israel or Ukraine. It really was just about understanding the artillery that's being given to these countries, how it's being used, if indeed they are using it to kill civilians. The vote was 72 in favor of killing this proposal to 11, with 37 Democrats on board with preventing Americans from seeing this information. So it begs the question, why do all these people not want the Americans to know how their money is being spent? What are they hiding? To me, this feels like they don't want us to know how the money is being spent because we might disapprove. Perhaps maybe they already know how this equipment and aid is being used, but turning a blind eye, which I suspect is a big portion of why so many turn this down, which I think is shameful. Anyhow, nothing we can do about this. These people make up their own minds and, for the most part, do appear that they're not putting America first. Quelle surprise. But what do you guys think is going to happen to the Palestinians now? Do you think that America is going to have to come in and save the day? Or do you think that other countries are going to pitch in and help out? Love to know your thoughts. I definitely am going to continue to keep following this particular situation closely. You don't want to miss it, so please don't forget to subscribe and like this video so you can be notified of more informative videos such as this. As I've said this before, this is a learning journey for me, and I've set this channel up to invite anyone who wants to come along to help get to a semblance of truth and reality. I believe that it is the responsibility of each of us to take ownership of our freedoms. The more informed we are, the better we can make choices instead of having the government do it for us. It's not going to be easy, but I have faith that we will be able to turn this ship around. Remember, we are the majority. They need us more than we need them. Stand tall and do not be afraid to use your voice. In repeating the words of Ben Franklin, Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. Remember those words when you see the manipulation of these leaders forcing you to compromise. Do not be fooled, otherwise you will be enslaved. The choice is yours while you still have it. Chew on that, and I'll catch you later.